Perhaps it was predestined. In Washington, D.C., a couple of blocks from the east front of the Capitol, sits the Folger Shakespeare Library. In much the same way as our National Archives houses the documents so dear to us as a people, the Folger Library boasts the world's largest collection of the printed works of William Shakespeare. Maybe the geographical proximity has an effect. At any rate, it appears the British playwright and poet has had his own impact on American politics and government. "All the world's a stage," wrote Shakespeare. Fittingly, the bard offered that observation in one of his plays, a comedy entitled As You Like It. Well, like it or not, there's more than a little stagecraft involved in the annual spectacle known as the State of the Union Address. The cue comes directly from the Constitution. Article 2, Section 3 of that document details one of the responsibilities of the President. He shall from time to time give to Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. For most of the first 140 years of our existence, presidents found it more expedient to deliver a written report to the legislative branch, but things changed a little less than a century ago. Woodrow Wilson, that academician turned politician, decided to deliver the State of the Union in person, and with the notable exception of Herbert Hoover, every president since has traveled up Pennsylvania Avenue to deliver a State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress. As a six-term member of the House, I sat in that chamber, saw an even dozen of those speeches delivered, 6 by Bill Clinton, 6 by George W. Bush, and while those speeches may have differed in specifics, the atmosphere surrounding them stayed the same. Because of television, special lights are brought into the House chamber, illuminating every nook and cranny, every corner of that great hall, and the expressions on every single face contained therein. For about the last 3 decades, it has been customary for special guests to be seated in the House gallery alongside the First Lady so that the President can extol their virtues and associate himself with their great deeds. The rhetorical term for that is linkage. Surprise, surprise. But there are those in the legislative branch who employ a nonverbal form of linkage. Some members of Congress, perhaps chagrined at being called backbenchers, stake out seats along the main aisle so they can make sure their faces are seen along with the President's as he is escorted into the chamber. They believe that gives the folks back home clear and compelling video evidence that they're on the job. And then there are those who don't specifically seek out the camera, but who are found by the electronic eye nonetheless. Since he finished second to Mr. Obama in 2008, Senator John McCain can always count on a close-up. It came last night as the president was talking tough about the Russians and the unexpected economic woes that have befallen that nation. Of course, the president spun it as if he'd known that would happen all along, implying that Senator McCain and others who criticize him had been wrong in their assessment. While Mr. Obama got a little visual aid in reminding the public of his 2008 election victory, he ignored any mention of his party's drubbing in the most recent midterms. I must point out that was certainly not the case with his most recent Democrat predecessor. 20 years ago, President Clinton was quick to acknowledge his party's defeat in the 1994 midterms, and with the help of Dick Morris, who will join us here in just a few minutes, Mr. Clinton famously uttered the phrase, "The era of big government is over." All of that led up to my very own close-up on that very memorable night in 1995, and unfortunately, I muffed it. No, I didn't stand up to challenge or heckle President Clinton. Instead, it was something I forgot to do. Following a pre-State of the Union dinner, one of my colleagues offered me a piece of chewing gum. I forgot to dispose of it prior to the president's speech. So I was introduced in a close-up to a national television audience chewing gum. Suffice it to say, that was not the image I wanted to convey. Maybe I would have been better off remembering the excellent instruction I received from my English instructor in my senior year of high school. Mrs. Durway was quite the teacher, and her AP course in English Lit was quite demanding. But I would have done well to remember one of her rules of conduct: no gum chewing in class. So, members of Congress, no gum chewing during the State of the Union, because all the world's a stage.